With coronavirus doing the rounds in South Africa, the provincial authorities have closed all of the nature reserves, so I can't get out there and photograph wildlife. So apart from entertaining you guys by growing out my coronavirus haircut, I thought one of the other things I could do was take you through my back catalogue. But one of the places I visited late last year in October with Basil is the Kalahari, and I haven't shown it to you yet. So this series is all about the Kalahari, an arid, wonderful, dry area hard on the border with Namibia that is fantastic for blue skies and wildlife photography. The Kalahari is at the top left-hand corner of South Africa, right here, and 1,000 kilometers away is my home, Johannesburg, right here. It's a nice drive though, out through the arid farmlands of South Africa, west into the desert to Upington on the Orange River, and then north through the dunes to the border with Namibia. So what is the Kalahari? Well, I've already said that it's an arid area right up against the Namibian border, and that's important for the reason it was founded. There are two rivers there, the Aub and the Nosib. They're dry, they're ephemeral. There's no water flowing down them, but there is some down below the ground. And in the early 1900s, at the beginning of the First World War, they were seen as a strategic way to invade German Southwest Africa, now known as Namibia. So teams of engineers were sent into the region to drill boreholes up the riverbeds. Now in the event, they weren't used as access for invading German Southwest. They went a different direction, but those boreholes allowed access by hunters and farmers, and pretty soon the area was denuded of wildlife. So in the early 1930s, the Minister for Lands, Piet Grobler, having just pronounced Kruger as a national park, decided that it was prudent to pronounce that area of the Kgalagadi as a national park as well. And that first now 9,000 square kilometers has grown over time to encompass an area of 34,500 square kilometers, one of the largest conservation areas on the planet. And that wonderful wildlife has come back in many of the areas and now populates those two dry riverbeds, the Aub and the Nosib, and the red dunes between them. It's a lot easier to visit the Kalahari than it used to be. Back in the old days, it was a 2-week journey to the town of Upington, 200 kilometers to the south. When I first visited in the 1990s, it wasn't 2 weeks, but the road wasn't tarred. It was 200 kilometers of gravel to the entrance to the park. Nowadays, it's tar all the way. In the park itself, it's still gravel. Long may that last. And you can reach it by driving west from Johannesburg for 1,000 kilometers through the arid farmland of Western South Africa. When you get to the park, there are 3 main camps. There's Tweerefuren, 2 rivers in English, that's at the junction of the rivers Nosib and Aub. If you travel up the Nosib River, the easternmost river, you reach a camp called Nosib in the far north. If you travel up the western branch, the Aub River, you reach a camp called Mata Mata on the border with Namibia. And those 3 camps form the major accommodation and administrative areas for the park. In between them, there are some wilderness camps, and on the Botswana side of the border, some rustic campsites. That's it. It's just you, those campsites, those little camps, and nature. So what can we expect from a wildlife perspective in the Kalahari? Well, I think it's important to realize that it's much, much drier than the eastern part of the country. So we're going to get different animals. They won't be the same species diversity that you'll see in the east. We're not going to see elephant, we're not going to see hippo, we're not going to see crocodile or Cape buffalo. What we will see are desert adapted specialists, animals like gemsbok. This is oryx in English. Springbok. We're going to see dry area specialists like eland and kudu. High concentrations of carnivores like Kalahari lions, black-maned lions, cheetah, some leopard, caracal, African wildcat. And we're also going to see a multitude of interesting bird life and dry area speciality bird life attracted by those riverbeds. And all of this is going to play out in an area of water and food scarcity. So there's going to be concentrations of animals around waterholes and grazing, and lots of interaction in this very special and interesting landscape. A landscape that looks so different to what we might expect of an African savanna. Seasonality plays a massive role in the Kalahari, and that's because of water and grazing. In our dry winter months between May and September, it's cold at night, below freezing, and the temperature rises during the day to about 25 degrees. There's a bright bowl of blue sky overhead, not a cloud in it, not a drop of water anywhere. The grazing disappears over the course of winter. Many of the animals die, and they congregate near the waterholes to slake their thirst, and the predators congregate with them. The atmosphere's sweet. There's a dust in it, there's a haze in it. You can feel that dust between your fingertips, and the sun hangs in the northern sky low, and you get a sweet light and a glow to the place. It's a wonderful time for interaction and photography at the waterholes. Then during the course of October, most of the weakest animals have died, only the strongest survive. The temperature gets up to 40 degrees in the shade, but still there's no water and no grazing. And then over the course of December, January, February, the clouds become pregnant in the sky, waiting and waiting and waiting, and then suddenly the rain falls. And if we're lucky, a once in 30-year event occurs. Water flows on the surface of these ephemeral rivers, the Arid and the Nosub. The rest of the time, it's below the surface, and green grasses spring up, and the grazers spread out, and the lambs drop, and the carnivores spread out with the grazers. And now the concentration is no longer around the waterhole, but around the grazing. And one follows that grazing up and down the river valleys to find the interaction and the hunts. It's a wonderful time for photographing wildlife in this green atmosphere, and also photographing raptors and migrant birds. They come in and they hunt over the standing water. It's a beautiful Kalahari morning, and the sun is rising in that direction over the Nosub Valley. I'm pretty excited about today. The gate's probably open by now, I think, and we've got to go down there and get our permit. There's a bit of a different system here. You have to have a permit when you leave so that they know if it hasn't arrived back, you're in trouble. And that's due to the arid environment and the distance and the roughness of the roads out here. They're not too bad, but you just have to be prudent because there's a lot of big cats between the camp and you if you get stuck out there. So we're going to be driving up the Nosub Valley today, and I've reconfigured Basil for that purpose. I've got all my camera gear in the front seat next to me, and Fiona's going to take the run of the back seat, and we're going to look out at the animals on the right side of the car, or the side of the car, hopefully mainly at waterholes, because it's October, suicide month. The temperature's going to get up to around 40 degrees. There's not a lot of water around, so hopefully the animals will congregate near the water and the grazing. The problem with that is the grazing and the water are actually not in the same places, because the waterholes have been overgrazed and any grass that's left is now up in the dunes. So it's going to be interesting because I haven't been here in October before, and I'm very interested to see what will result.